Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to a very special edition of the movie review series. And today I am going to be talking about the newest DC animated movie, Batman the Doom That Came to Gotham, which I have just finished watching. And before I get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to one of my main guys, the one and only, the badass himself, Rex the Boss 11. So Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham, I was inspired to check this one out after watching Rex the Boss 11's British fans retrospective on this new Batman animated movie. And I've seen pretty much all of the DC animated movies except this one. So I was very, very interested to see what this one was like. And after watching Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham, I was surprised at how good this was. This was very different to what we've seen before from a Batman animated movie. It drew a lot of inspiration from manga and anime, in terms of the over the top nature of the story and the scale it involved. And for the most part, I actually really enjoyed it. It was a very different kind of Batman animated movie that I have been used to seeing. And yeah, it's really good. I quite enjoyed this one a lot. So, Batman the Doom That Came to Gotham is inspired by a three-part mini comic book series of the same name under the Elseworlds umbrella. So, this is pretty much an Elseworlds kind of movie. So it's not connected to the DCAU or the Tomorrowverse. It's pretty much a standalone story, and it works. With Elseworlds, it's not tied to anything. It can be whatever it wants to be. It's not connected to any universe. It's pretty much its own original concept. And for the most part, I thought the movie did a great job in adapting certain elements of the Elseworlds mini comic book series. So, for this Batman animated movie, Bruce Wayne is more of an explorer as opposed to being a billionaire playboy. So, he is still a billionaire, but he's more of an explorer. And the story itself is kind of set in the 1920s, so it's not set in like the future like Batman Beyond, or it's set in the 80s. It's pretty much like a throwback kind of story, so it's set more in the past. And for the most part, I thought this was very good. I thought this was quite enjoyable. And the choice of voice actors for the cast of this movie, a lot of the actors I don't really know, apart from two or three who I'm very familiar with. So the voice of Batman was provided by David Gintoli. We also had Tati Gabrielle, who did the voice of Kylie Chan, David Dastmalchian as the voice of Grendon, Christopher Gorham as the voice of Oliver Queen, Patrick Fabian as the voice of Harvey Dent, James Marsden as the voice of Dick Grayson and young Bruce Wayne, Gideon Adlon as Oracle, Jeffrey Combs, who I know as The Question, did provided the voice of Kirk Langstrom, John DiMaggio as James Gordon, Tim Russ as Lucius Fox, Brian George as Alfred, Naveed Negapan as Ra's al Ghul, Emily O'Brien as Talia al Ghul and Martha Wayne, Matthew Waterson as Jason Blood and Etrigan, William Sawyers as Oswald Cobblepot, Karen Barr as Jay Twad, and Doreen DePaul as Thomas Wayne. So, apart from three voice actors who I'm very familiar with, the rest of the cast I didn't really know a lot about. So, I think that kind of made it a bit better for me going into watching this movie. So, it's best not to have too much expectations with voice actors because I'm so used to what I'm normally hearing, like Kevin Conroy or a Bruce Greenwood or a Troy Baker. So going into this movie, I had zero expectations for what to expect from the voice acting, but for the most part, this was actually really good. I really enjoyed this one a lot. So the story here is Bruce Wayne accidentally unleashes an ancient evil as he returns to Gotham after a 2-decade hiatus. And this movie had a lot of magic and supernatural elements. And yeah, it was really good. It was something I hadn't really seen before in a Batman animated movie. Yes, we've seen a bit of magic in the animated series, but not too much. They've always kept Batman kind of grounded, not fully grounded in reality, but Batman's got his over the top villains. But this movie was very over the top, but in a good way. This movie definitely leans more towards horror, which is no surprise because Batman has always lent himself to dabbling into the horror aspects in the past, especially with the type of villains that he has. So it's no surprise that for this movie, Batman would go down the horror route. So what we see in this movie is we see Professor Cobblepot, for those of you who know that name, that's the Penguin. We see the Penguin basically mutated and he's living in the Arctic. And we see Bruce finds all of these mutated creatures and Cobblepot's undead assistant, Grendon, and he brings him back to Gotham. And we see Grendon, he's basically like an ice vegetable. So he's kind of turned into like Mr. Freeze in a way. He just completely raving mad, and Bruce has him locked up in the cellar in the boat, and he's just completely whack. He's just completely out of it. And we also got an appearance from Talia al Ghul. Now, Talia al Ghul, I always know as the lover of Bruce Wayne and the mother of Damian Wayne. And she's always been kind of an anti character. She's a good person, but she does bad things for good reasons, as we've seen in the past. But for this movie, Talia was a full-on villain, and she's pretty much on a mission to try and bring her dad Ra's al Ghul back from the dead, who kind of looked like Jafar from Aladdin. That's not insulting in any way. He kind of looked like Jafar from Aladdin, and Talia looked like Princess Jasmine gone rogue. So, it was kind of weird to see Talia being evil because I'm more used to seeing Talia being not necessarily a good person, but I'm more used to seeing her being all sexy and nice to Bruce and calling him beloved. There was no love in this movie, none whatsoever. So, you know, Batman's costume, very retro, very similar to his costume that he had in Gotham by Gaslight. And yeah, as I said, this movie was very much like a retro movie. It wasn't really like your typical Batman animated movie where Batman's going to come and save the day, which he does. But as I said, it's more like a horror movie. Think of Van Helsing. It's kind of like Batman meets Van Helsing with a bit of Sherlock Holmes and the Hound of the Baskervilles thrown into the mix. There's lots of different elements thrown into the mix here, and for the most part, it actually works very well. As far as villains are concerned, we got appearances from, as I mentioned already, Ra's al Ghul, Talia, Mr. Freeze, Killer Croc. Two Face was in this movie, but he didn't really do a lot. He got affected by Poison Ivy, and you pretty much see Harvey Dent develop this weird rash-like condition, and eventually he just turned into this mutant. He wasn't really a villain. He just basically just turned into a vegetable after Poison Ivy more or less like infected him. And we also saw in this movie, in order for Batman to save the entire city, he had to let the city burn to the ground and he had to become his true self. And we kind of got this big battle between Batman and Ra's al Ghul, and we see Batman essentially die and he mutates into Man Bat. So that was quite shocking to say the very least. Oliver Queen didn't really have much of a big part in this movie. He was there, but he was just more like a drunk fool, really, just sitting there drinking and telling his stories of what him and Bruce used to get up to when they were younger. Yeah, Oliver Queen, nice to see him, but at the same time, he didn't really do a whole lot. You know, nothing you could say. Yeah, it was great to have Oliver Queen there. But, he was just there. He is nothing too extravagant as far as Oliver Queen's role was concerned for this movie. The most we saw with Oliver Queen was he put on this armor and he just basically got turned into a zombie, so to speak, and Bruce managed to find Oliver's sacred arrows and he pretty much used Oliver's arrows to defeat everyone. So I thought that was a good twist in the movie. And we also saw Sanjay, that's this movie's version of Jason Todd. He got mutated into a zombie. So did Dick Grayson. Got mutated. Basically, everyone was turned into a zombie, and I thought that was quite decent. It's always cool to see Batman taking on zombies. And the way this movie ends, you don't necessarily get a happy ending. So while Bruce does live, he's pretty much hiding in his mansion in his Man Bat form, and yeah, that's pretty much how the film ends. So, Bruce more or less saves the day, but at the same time, he pays a very heavy price. So, it's living up to the tradition that no matter what universe it is, the Waynes will always be cursed with tragedy. So, we essentially see Bruce's empire ends up with Kylie and Lucius Fox and Alfred advising. So we see her give a speech at the end over Bruce's apparent death, and we see her acting very pensive about it. So it's just like in the title, Gotham is bathed in blood and is destined to deal with more death and destruction. But yeah, overall, I thought this was a pretty decent Batman animated movie. My rating I'm going to give for this one is pretty much Rex's rating for this movie. I'm going to give this a solid 7.5. I think this was pretty enjoyable, very watchable, and I like it when DC do Elseworld movies. It's different because, as I said, it's not tied to any universe. It's not tied to any movies. It's pretty much its own original concept, and it works. And I definitely like to see DC dabble more into the Elseworld stories because there's a lot of good material to get your teeth into. So that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. What's your thoughts on Batman, the Doom that came to Gotham? Did you enjoy it? What did you think of the way they handled Bruce mutating into Man Bat? Did you enjoy that? And also, how do you feel about all of Bruce's friends and family being turned into zombies? Do you think that was good? And also, what's your thoughts on the way this movie ended? Were you okay with it? Did you find it a bit sad, or do you think it could have ended in a different way? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the movie review series. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.